It has been 2 weeks since I made a video, and I am starting to get that itch, that you haven't made anything itch. Unfortunately, when I went to set up the camera, I discovered that I cannot for the life of me figure out where my autofocus remote is, so if I get blurry, I'm sorry. Hello everybody and happy Monday. I am back. I am Kevin. I had a little bit of an issue with epilepsy over the past week and a half. Basically, my brain decided I hadn't had enough exercise. I disagreed, and so my brain threw me unconscious, and I ran a marathon in my sleep. Came in first. So this has kind of slowed down my video making process while I've been in recovery, but I wanted to get something out because it's been 2 weeks and that's a long time. And Mickeleh has tagged me in the media identity tag, so we are going to look at those tag questions and then we are going to answer them much like you would expect in a tag video. Question number 1. Through which media do you produce and consume content? So this is a question for which my answer has changed quite a bit recently. I think obviously my primary sources of input and output personally are YouTube and Twitter to a lesser extent. If I can fit it within 140 characters, then it goes to one. If not, it goes to the other. But I also, I watch plenty of Netflix. I watch too much Netflix. And I was on Tumblr for a while, but I've discovered something about a lot of incoming media, and it's not particular to one area or another. It makes me stressed out, a lot of it. I think part of this is just that so many opinions have to be so polar. There's kind of a race to be the complete end of the spectrum so that you get amplified as much as possible within that little echo chamber. And so the sources and the stories that come in really started to stress me out. And so I decided I was just not going to go on Tumblr anymore because the anxiety content to regular content ratio was just not favorable for me. I spent a lot more time on Reddit recently, not looking at the homepage, which is a lot of the same problems, but kind of just trying to discover little subreddits on individual topics that tend not to be super aneurysm-inducing types of stories. Number 2, how did you learn to use these media? At home, at school, or on your own? Everything that I know about Microsoft Publisher, I learned at school. They were really, really big on that. I learned obviously a lot about general computing at home, but the majority of everything that I've learned has been kind of either on my own or on the job experience. Now when it comes to video specifically, I learned nothing at all from work or from school. I've never had a job in that type of business, which has not helped. When I discover that there is a complete gap in my knowledge, it's relatively easy for me to go, I don't understand color correction, or I don't know how to use this editor, or I don't understand how to mix music at all, and to search and to look and to find examples and trying to self-teach. But the problem with self-directed education, even though it can be a lot more efficient, is you don't know where the blinders are. I don't know what it is that I am completely oblivious to when it comes to video production. In a perfect world, college education would be, you know, you take a 2-credit class for the rest of your life. And it'd be a general class, so that all of the stuff that you actually know that you need to learn, you can do on your own. That'd be a world I'd like to live in. Number 3, how important are those media to your life? How have they changed you? Well, on that one, I just don't know. I mean, does a brainwashed person realize that they're brainwashed? I would think that that would kind of contradict the brainwashing. I do often ask myself to what extent the views and the personality that I have is shaped by the incoming sources of media that have reached me, and I'd like to think that that's a good sign. What I do know is that my life and livelihood are based in media. I work as a software developer for Mashable, which means that if people don't click on the flashy stories, I don't get paid. Which makes things tricky in this particular age where it becomes really easy to be just Machiavellian. I look at a lot of the BuzzFeed quizzes that Mickeleh mentioned in his video, and it just seems like it's so little effort to drive as much traffic as possible, which makes sense from a business perspective. But there's the journalistic integrity thing. Are they telling us the stuff that we need to know? One of the wonderful things about the internet, as Seth Godin once remarked, is that it was the end of gatekeepers. There was no longer some big fat white guy puffing on a cigar who could say, no, your book is not worthy of being published. But the problem now is that despite the fact that those gatekeepers are gone and it costs you literally nothing to produce whatever you want and share it with the world isn't gonna see it. Because the internet runs on advertising revenue, and the way that you maximize advertising revenue is by getting people to look at your stuff as much as possible. What that means is that there's a great incentive to keep people inside their little echo chambers where they only hear what they want to hear and they only see the things that they are most likely to click on. And the one thing that I think has helped this more than anything else is this tiny little horrible device. The wonderful collaborative utopia model of the internet is something that we see with Wikipedia. It's based on the idea that there are enough good people producing good things that they will outweigh the crap and vapid stuff. But what this is a producer reducing device. The advance of touchscreen devices has meant that it has become so much easier to consume things, to watch videos, to read articles, to flick through random photos and decide what we like and we don't like. What it doesn't do very well is let you create things. Which again is a great business model because we're optimized to the point that my watching a video makes Google an awful lot more money than my making one. And it's getting worse. I mean, look at things like Google Glass. You're not gonna be creating much with that thing, are you? Number 4, how do you portray yourself through those media? Politically, socially, artistically, or otherwise? It's all a lie. When it comes to personality and mannerisms, you're actually getting a slightly more authentic version of me. When I'm out in public, I'm just grumpy and slow and meh. When I'm alone and talking to myself, which I do a lot of the time, this is generally the way that that sort of dialogue goes. In the sense that I am Ron, there's no response, and I keep talking. But do I express my accurate politico, socio, religio, etc. views? No. God, no. There's a problem with that. And that if I were to say certain things that I believe or just discuss certain attributes of my personality, generally political or religious or etc., those sort of views, it becomes very easy for you to make a snap judgment about who I am as a person holistically. And we all do it. The best of us might hold those snap decisions very lightly, but it is kind of how we get around in the world. So there are things that if we were to sit down and have a 5-minute conversation, I would be perfectly fine sharing with you, because then at least it's presented in the context of us having a conversation. The feelings that you have, whether for or against a particular aspect of my worldview, should be mitigated by the fact that you have access to the rest of my worldview. You can't ask any follow-up questions. You can't get the context. We can't have a discussion, and I don't want something that I say to be misrepresented in that way. And the last question, number 5, what responsibilities do you have as a consumer of media, or as a producer? This is again something that I think has recently changed for me. It used to be that I felt, okay, I need to make sure that I consume an appropriate amount of media vegetables, reading absolutely everything that would make me stressed out and hate the world. So I kind of have a new policy now. Strive always to cultivate in yourself both curiosity and skepticism. And trust that if you pursue those things, you will wind up with a healthy balance of media. Beyond that, if it's not furthering those two things, you don't have to read it. Now, as a producer, Mickeleh said, you are what you make. But I think the reverse is also true. That you make whatever it is that you are. And I'm still trying to find myself. I didn't take a semester abroad in college. I'm trying really hard now to make sure that the stuff that I make is not governed by the people who watch it. There are so many options out there, and I have to trust that the consumers can exercise their own rights and simply not watch my stuff if it's not what's best for them. Your responsibility as a producer is to make things. So now's the part where I'm supposed to tag people, and I'm not good at tagging people. It's hard picking, you know, who, because it feels like a popularity contest sometimes. So, tag, you're it.